and the equity market rally. Welcome to Europe This Week. I'm Guy Johnson. So, Russia and the European Union clashed at this week's bilateral summit, highlighting worsening relations between the two. Angela Merkel and José Manuel Barroso appear to have stood firm behind Poland, Lithuania and Estonia and their disputes with Moscow. The summit has also seen controversy surrounding the treatment of anti-Putin protests. Russian police stopped opposition leaders from boarding a plane in Moscow to attend a demonstration in the southern city of Samara, near where the summit was held. But Garry Kasparov says it's not just the Kremlin that's to blame.
It's very difficult to operate at a situation where the West simply takes Putin's side in this battle. Also, I have to admit that Europe is now doing a much better job by demonstrating its unhappiness with the current development in Russia.
Relations between the EU and Russia have been under pressure in recent months, and Commission President José Manuel Barroso indicated that a problem for one member state represents a problem for the whole of the EU. But Russian diplomats continue to rubbish claims of a crisis. One of them is the country's ambassador to the EU, Vladimir Chizov.
I believe there has been no disaster, so there is no need for recovery. This summit, which is actually already the 19th Russia-EU summit, is a good opportunity to exchange views on existing situation in the bilateral relations and also on a number of international issues. Some issues that raise concern on either side, and of course diffuse some of the speculations that have been floated around by some of your more unscrupulous colleagues.
But does Europe have any other option but to engage with its biggest neighbour? Joining us now is Maria Orjonikidze, Secretary General at the EU-Russia Centre. Maria, welcome.
Yeah, thank you.
That is the question. We have to talk, don't we, as part
Absolutely.
of the EU?
Absolutely. The talks should be continued, and the fact that summit happened today, even in spite of the fact that Xavier Solana was not present, is a good indication of that the dialogue continues. The only thing that should be achieved is the common ground between the two parties should be found.
Is it that Europe is to blame here? We don't push forward with a common policy. We don't have a single voice. We've had Angela Merkel and Barroso going over there, but we still have all these disputes between the various former Soviet satellites. We have the disputes with Moscow at a higher level as well. And actually, there's no clearly defined objective.
Well, President Putin is exactly doing that. He's blaming Europe for not figuring out its own policy, its own common voice. And in fact, one should agree that there is a bit of controversy within the EU, and that the EU should really find a unilateral position and voice a unilateral position in everything that concerns Russia. And I think this summit showed that there is, in fact, a way forward, where Europe, without any doubt, supported Polish and Lithuanian and Estonian position.
The problem has been basically many of these former satellites, hasn't it, and where they fit into the equation. It was a very neat situation before. We had the West and we had the East. Now we have this blurred line which has appeared in the middle, and nobody's quite sure how to deal with it.
Well, in fact, Central and Eastern Europe finally started to play a vital role in the relationship between Europe and Russia. And it's very good, in fact, because these states have much more experience and very different experience in dealing with Russia and formerly the Soviet Union than Europe. So it is a big benefit to the so-called old Europe to listen to the states, to learn their position and to take it into consideration when dealing with Russia.
Why does Moscow treat them with such hostility, though?
Moscow can still think of itself as a legitimate heir of Soviet past, which is we in the EU-Russia Center think is not a very good position, because Russia should really treat itself as a national state, defending its national interests, but at the same time finding a way to partner with its closest neighbors, and the closest neighbors is EU.
How can this whole story make progress when Putin seems so determined to clamp down on opposition at home? That is becoming a bigger issue for many in the West.
Well, President Putin said that Russia doesn't consider the threat of opposition serious. It doesn't think that, quote, marginal forces will create any difference. Although the actions of police this morning made this statement look not very truthful, because the police didn't let the opposition leaders go and actually participate in the marches in Samara. So there is controversy here.
How does the US fit into all of this? We have an EU relationship with Moscow that has to happen. The US can take a much more stand-aside approach to dealing with Putin and his subsequent successor. But if we look at how this is changing the world, how does the difficulty that the EU is having with Russia at the moment shape wider issues?
I think Russia should realize that EU is as strong a partner as US used to be and continues to be. Russia used to count only the US as in a bipolar world as a legitimate opponent or legitimate partner. But now with EU enlarging and integrating more members, it is a challenge for Russia to take into consideration its new and growing role. And it's a challenge also to understand that there are more similarities between EU and US, and probably the two will try to get Russia into their camp, into the shared value camp.
How does progress get made from here between the EU and Russia?
Well, we think that the dialogue should be continued, and both the US and the EU should try to continue to try to engage Russia in the dialogue, and the dialogue which is based on common values, on European human rights values, which Russia seems to now try to forget and to replace them with the problems that are not vital, really.
Maria, thank you very much indeed. Maria Orjonikidze, Secretary-General at the EU-Russia Center. France has witnessed the dawn of a new political era this week with the inauguration of